Hi, I'm Phil and I'm a late diagnosed autistic adult. In this video, I want to break down some key reasons that led me to thinking that I was autistic. In my earlier two-part introduction to autism video, I tried to break autism down into a factual description, but in this video I wanted to go a bit deeper into my personal experience. I also wanted to thank everyone for the comments about those videos and for those who requested more. Also, if you're interested in seeing more videos about my experience of being autistic and issues important to autistic adults, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. This lets me know I'm not just talking to an empty room and helps to get the message out to a wider audience by letting the YouTube algorithm know that people are interested in this topic. Also, before we begin, an important point to note is autism is a spectrum of challenges and abilities. As such, no two autistic people will have the same experience or the same traits. Non-autistic people may relate to any of the traits I list in this video. Relating to individual traits does not make someone autistic. Likewise, if you don't relate to everything that I list in this video, it does not mean you're not autistic. It is a combination of certain general traits and experiences that can lead to an autism diagnosis. The purpose of this video is to show a snapshot of some autistic traits and experiences to help people who may be on the journey of autism self-discovery and to educate everyone else about autism in general. Okay, let's dive in to the 10 reasons I thought I was autistic. Number 1, social issues. I've always found myself being overwhelmed in social situations. Actually, this does not even have to be social situations, but could be work or shopping, or basically any time I need to go out into public where I'm likely to need to interact with other people. I'm pretty good with people I know, but if I need to interact with new people, I find it very stressful. The normal social rules dictate there is some sort of byplay that includes discussion around topics of little importance as a way of breaking the ice. This small talk for many of us autistic people is actually really hard and takes real concentration to follow along and to try to stay engaged and not appear rude. Added to this is the constant internal dialogue that is chattering away inside on things like, am I showing enough interest in what's being said? Where should I look? What's my body language doing? Should I say something? Have I forgotten this person's name already? What's that sound in the background? Can anyone smell that? The sun's in my eyes, but if I step around so the sun's not in my eyes, then the sun will be in their eyes, and so I shouldn't do that. Oh, hang on. They've stopped talking and are looking at me like I should respond. What did they just say? Also, things like how to politely end the conversation without being rude. Or should I just walk away? Thus, going somewhere where I need to interact with new people is daunting and tiring. This has meant that I've not turned up to social events like parties and weddings in the past. Number 2, sensory issues around food and smells. I've always been what most people would call a fussy eater. I had no idea this experience is common for autistic people. As a child, I had a very limited range of food that I could eat, but I always thought that I would grow out of it when I was older. Getting older didn't change anything about my eating preferences. The only thing that changed was that other people my age expanded their tastes while mine stayed the same. This widening of the taste gap actually made my limited eating more noticeable. Moving into adulthood started to mean that socialising often included eating with other people, which made going out quite difficult. Again, events like weddings, where a meal was consumed in the presence of predominantly strangers while engaging in small talk, meant I was either present and stressed out, or I didn't turn up at all, which was also extremely embarrassing. My favourite food has always been hot chips, so obviously takeaway food has always been a comfort food. But even then, there is only a limited range of fast food I can eat. I was reminded recently when I shared my autism diagnosis with an old friend, and as he processed the sensory side of my autism, he commented that I would always dismantle my Macca's hamburger and take out the ingredients that I did not eat, including wiping out the mustard. So these things have been obvious to other people as well. But it's not just picky eating that I discovered is an autistic trait, but also sensitivity to smell. This has also been a big one for me, particularly around food smells. I remember as a child the rest of my family would occasionally have Chinese takeaway at home, and Dad would bring home a hamburger and chips for me from the fish and chip shop. The Chinese food smell for me was so overwhelming I would stay in my room and not come out until the following morning, as I could still smell it all night. In a previous workplace, I had a desk located close to the communal kitchen. I often found I had to leave my desk when people were heating up foods in the microwave, as I got overwhelmed by the food smells. In fact, I sometimes needed to leave the office altogether in these situations to let the smells dissipate. Again, eating out can be overwhelming because of the mix of smells, whether it's in a restaurant or even at someone's home. Number 3, logic and details. Another trait that I resonate with that is common to many autistic people is the way autistic people process information. This includes being strongly logical in problem solving, or in fact, logical in general thought processing. I found this to be a great asset in my work in being able to break a problem down and work out solutions. Also included in this way of thinking is being good at recognising details. This detail and pattern recognition can be a great asset in employment areas like data science, which might be handy as I've done some study in this area recently with a view to transitioning my career towards IT. Number 4, rigidity and routines. I've always been very rigid in my way of thinking about things. By that I mean when I set my mind on something or a way of doing something, then it's hard to change that idea. Usually I've come to that solution because I've used my logical thinking to decide that that is the best way of doing it, so I get set on it. An example here is when I'm cooking. I always lay out the food on the plate in the same way. I will almost always do the cooking dishes as I serve up and before eating. Again, because this makes logical sense to do them in that moment when they are easy to clean, and it only takes seconds rather than waiting till later when the food is dried on. Also, I can't relax in front of the TV if the dishes are hanging over me. Also, when I'm working doing live shows, everything has to be labelled and inventoried before the show when prepping the gear in my workshop. When it comes time to pack up, every lead, stand, microphone, etc. has to be counted back into its proper box. Everything has to be accounted for, which takes extra time. I know that if I don't do these things, I will get stressed out that something might be missed or left behind and will cause an issue at the next show, not to mention the cost of losing equipment. Number 5, spatial awareness and clumsiness. Autistic people often have some degree of problems with where their body is located in relation to the world around us. For some autistic people, this can be severe enough to classify as a condition called dyspraxia. Often this will also include spilling things, or even if I have something that I'm working on with one hand, the other hand might come crashing through and break or spill what I was carefully doing. Another situation I have noticed is spatial awareness is when driving our boat and coming into dock at a jetty. As we have a small outboard motor on the back, I have to turn around to put the motor in reverse to stop the boat. The process is to put the motor in neutral, then coast into the jetty with the existing forward movement, then put the motor into reverse and give it a rev to arrest the forward momentum. But turning my head to look back at the controls, I often get confused as to which way is forward and which way is reverse. So I might put the motor back into forward before giving the motor a rev to stop the boat. Then, crash, we hit the jetty hard. And I've done this time and time again. Another interesting aspect possibly related to this is that I'm not solely right-handed, left-handed, or even ambidextrous, but some strange combination of all three. Number 6, meltdowns. I have always been prone to having meltdowns when I get overwhelmed in a situation. This has almost always been expressed in private, even when I was a child. I can remember as a child on one occasion trying to break a Matchbox car in half as an outlet in a meltdown. As a teenager, I would go into the backyard and punch a particular stringy bark gum tree which had a fairly thick and relatively soft bark. Over time, this tree ended up with a noticeable mark on it, and I remember overhearing my parents one day wondering what was causing this mark, which caused me to look for a different outlet for my meltdowns to stay hidden. These meltdowns do still occur as an adult, and have caused me to injure myself as a result of doing things like punching walls or solid objects. In fact, when I was a younger adult, I even broke the windscreen of my car punching it while having a meltdown. One common thread here is that for me, meltdowns are almost always private, and certainly the more extreme ones. This is something that I really don't want anyone else to see. So to emphasise a point here, a meltdown is not the same as a tantrum. A meltdown is an uncontrolled outburst as a result of overwhelm, which might be emotional or sensory overstimulation. It may be able to be suppressed enough to get away from other people before expressing it, or it might just happen. A tantrum, on the other hand, is done to achieve an outcome to manipulate a situation. We've all seen children have tantrums to try and get their own way, for example. A tantrum is not an autistic trait. Number 7, intense interests. The level of intensity of key special interests is another reason that I thought I might be autistic. I've always been into space, astronomy, astrophysics and cosmology. As a child, my focus was always up to the sky, looking out for new things. When my brother got a telescope as a teenager, we spent many, many evenings outside, looking at the moon and the planets, and lining the camera up on its separate tripod to take photos of these through the telescope eyepiece. When I was a young teen, we went on a family holiday to America, and I was insistent that we had to visit NASA as part of our itinerary. As a bonus, we also got to see the launch of the Intelsat 503 satellite from Cape Canaveral while standing on Daytona Beach at night, which was awesome. Years later, I dragged my whole family and some family friends up to the Murray River where the skies were dark so I could photograph Halley's Comet on the night of its closest approach to Earth. Interestingly, space is one of the really common special interests for autistic people, along with things like trains, dinosaurs, penguins, Lego and a few others. I've had many more special interests throughout my life, but space is one that has truly stayed with me. I will still get hugely excited if there is some opportunity to observe or photograph something new in the sky, and have been so lucky to observe many once-in-a-lifetime astronomical events, such as eclipses, comets, meteor showers, and transits of Mercury and Venus. I was totally thrilled to be able to see the recent aurora event, as auroras was something that I've tried to view for decades unsuccessfully. Okay, this is future editing Phil here, and I should probably jump in, as the one thing about autistic people is once you start us talking about one of our topics of intense interest, it can be hard to stop us. So I'll abruptly wind up my space and astronomy discussion here before I tell you about every single night's observing that I've ever done and show you every photo of space and the stars and everything else that I've ever taken. And don't even get me started on talking about sailing or golf if you want this video to end at some point. At number 8 on my list is stims and repetitive body movements. Stimming is a way that autistic people release emotional energy with repetitive body movements or other repetitive actions such as making sounds or listening or visual repetitions. I've always been someone who moves a lot. As a child, I was always bouncing up and down. As an adult, my stims have been much more covert so as not to attract attention. A couple that I've discovered that other autistic people do, that I do frequently, are scrunching my toes up in my shoes and making bird claws of my feet, running everywhere, not for exercise, but just as a bit of a release. This can be when I go to the shops. I might run from the car to the shop and back again. When working around the house, I often run to the garage and back if I need a new tool or something. This running could also be seen as an ADHD trait. Earworms are another big one for me. I often have the same bits of music going around and around in my head. Annoyingly though, this might only be a few bars or even a few beats at a time. As a footnote to this point on stimming is the cliche that autistic people flap their hands. While I've always had many stims, I've never been a hand flapper, so this one did not initially resonate for me. But after watching a video from Taylor Heaton at Mum on the Spectrum, in which she recommended late diagnosed autistic adults should try larger body movement stims, I tried hand flapping in what I would say was a dismissive way, but to try it nonetheless. I was actually pretty surprised at how it felt, in that it felt really good. What I then realised is that hand flapping is actually a really efficient way to stim as a way of releasing emotional energy. Ever since that moment, I now use hand movements, and hand flapping daily as a stim because it just works. This has also caused much amusement for my wife, who has noticed this change in my everyday life. I also want to include here the fact that some autistic people also have movements that might be classified as tics rather than stims. The distinction here is stims are a repetitive form of movement, usually to help regulate our emotional system, where tics are a more sudden and possibly jerking form of movement. These can often be triggered as a response to certain thoughts, or may just occur. When we think of tics, we often think of Tourette's syndrome, with its seemingly obvious movements or vocal utterances. Tourette's syndrome is a separate condition to autism, but both are closely related neurodiversities, and some people with Tourette's may also be autistic. Common autistic tics that I experience include occasional head jerking, or overemphasised blinking, or some facial distortions. As a predominantly non-swearing or cursing person, I also find myself blurting out the occasional F-bomb in a completely out-of-context situation. Other autistic people may also have tics that include hitting themselves, eye-rolling, or repeating words and phrases that other people have used in what is called echolalia, or making vocal sounds in what is called palallalia. The interesting thing about autistic tics is you usually get a premonitory urge or indication that the tic is coming in the fraction of a second before it happens. This can allow the opportunity to suppress or mask the tic. While I have had these tics as long as I can remember, no one else has ever really actually seen them, as I've been so careful, probably both consciously and subconsciously, about masking these tics when I feel them come on. It feels a bit odd talking about this, as people who have known me for a long time won't know anything about this aspect of me, and I'm pretty confident that no one prior to my diagnosis, with the exception maybe of my wife, and even then in a very limited way, has ever seen me do any of this. Interestingly, before I started down the journey of discovering my autism, I remember stopping one day and thinking maybe I had some small form of Tourette's because of these tics happening that I really did not understand. I did a little research on the topic and came to the understanding that it could not be Tourette's, and to even think so was diminishing the experience of those people who genuinely have that diagnosis. So I just figured I was being overly dramatic. But now, in the light of my autism diagnosis, it makes sense. Maybe now I'm going public with my autism, some of these might become a bit more visible from time to time. We'll see what happens. Number 9, the telephone. Without being too overly dramatic, the telephone has always been my mortal enemy. Well, maybe a bit dramatic. The concept of just picking up the phone to call someone is just so foreign to me. I need to script in my head what I'm going to say and have options for every possible way the conversation could go. This is so daunting and exhausting. As a teenager and younger adult, I would sit at the phone if I had to make a call, sometimes for hours just looking at it, trying to psych myself up to dial the number. Then there was no certainty as to who at the other end would pick up the phone. That destroyed the script, and I had no idea of what type of polite small talk was necessary before asking to talk to the person I was calling. In fact, on several occasions when trying to call a girl I might have been interested in, I remember sitting and watching shadows move across the entire room as I tried to make the call, often ending with me just getting up and walking away and aborting the mission. Nowadays, with the invention of mobile phones, SMS and email, the communication barrier is less in being able to make contact. But even then, the anxiety over how messages might be received might make that difficult also. Number 10, eye contact. Eye contact is an interesting one for me, as I'm probably not stereotypically autistic in my eye contact. Actually, we've got to get away from the idea that autistic people can't make eye contact. It's factually incorrect. Some autists will struggle, some will stare, and some will be apparently neurotypical, but most likely most will have struggles in some area, whether it's apparent or not. What I often find is that when talking with someone, I can make eye contact, but my focus shifts away as I concentrate, either because I am talking or because I might be listening to what's being said. Some people in the past have thought this was me being disinterested in the conversation or me being distracted. Actually, it's the opposite. The focus moves away to remove the distraction of looking at the person to help me concentrate. Like with many autistic traits, it's getting the balance right that can be difficult. This means that I've also been told off for staring, as I sometimes don't know what is normal or expected. Again, if listening intently, fixing my gaze on someone's eyes might also be the result for the same reason as above. Likewise, I can lose the thread of conversation if trying to force eye contact. Okay, at number 11 in my 10 reasons for thinking I was autistic is employment. Okay, this bonus reason is about my relationship to employment. This one probably deserves a video of its own, but for me, there are a few key points that led to me thinking that my employment experience was an autistic one. When I left university, I was unable to get employment in my field of study, which was applied physics. I had many interviews, but I could just not quite get past that point. I think I was being a bit blunt and overly honest when being interviewed. I think for some of the questions they asked me in interviews, they're expected answers, but I just gave the honest answer in my head and could see in the reactions of the faces I had strayed from the expected script. It could be things like, would this job be the most important thing in your life? Which for me was a resounding no. Maybe there was some expectation of an answer that would indicate that I was going to be really committed to the role. Not sure. Maybe laughing with incredulity to that question didn't help either. Another problem with interviews is autistic processing delay. If you ask me a question, don't expect an answer for about 20 minutes. This does not work too well in a job interview. I think just about every job I have had has been because I've been invited to work at a place, so an interview was not necessary. Also, another key aspect of autism is autistic inertia. This is where it's hard to either stop what you're doing or equally hard to start something new. Looking for, then starting a new position is so difficult for an autistic person. Conversely, if an autist is in a job where they are valued and inspired, then they will likely be extremely loyal and do the job to the best of their ability. In my case, I was asked to work for an organisation which was recording talking books for people with print disabilities. This suited me well, and I worked doing this for more than 20 years. I was inspired to work to help other people. The recording studios were quiet with subdued lighting, and I was mostly either working with one other person who was reading the books, or I was by myself editing. Autistic bliss. I was also able to use my autistic logical thinking and problem-solving skills to come up with lots of new processes and use technologies in unique ways to solve problems. Unfortunately, this work came to an end, and I found the transition out of that difficult, and that led to an extended period of underemployment, all the while not understanding that I was autistic and how that was affecting my struggle to find new employment. It's these periods of underemployment interspaced with periods of highly engaged employment that seems to be consistent with the autistic experience. To end on here is a not-so-fun fact from the Amaze website on autism and employment. In Australia, the unemployment rate for autistic people is 31.6%. This is 3 times the rate of people with a disability and almost 6 times the rate of people without a disability. Yep, that means autistic people are 3 times more likely to be unemployed than a person with any other form of disability. So there you have it, 10 or in fact 11 reasons why I thought I might be autistic. In my next video, I want to take this a step further and look at 15 things about me that I had no idea were related to being autistic. Also, if you want to find out more about what autism is, what it isn't, and why I decided to get an official autism diagnosis, please feel free to check out my 2-part video on my introduction to autism. And remember, if you want to see more videos on my experience with autism, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.